about gender. One is the narrative of pathology. So the narrative of pathology says gender dysphoria is a psychiatric illness so severe that it warrants extreme medical treatments, surgeries, and chemicals that are as invasive and extreme as what we would use to treat cancer. On the other hand, the same people advocating for those medical treatments also will tell you that there's nothing pathological about this condition that we might call gender dysphoria. In fact, maybe we shouldn't call it gender dysphoria at all. Maybe we should just call it gender incongruence. If you look at the criteria for how gender dysphoria is described in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, it's really just a list of stereotypes and then someone saying that they feel like they don't fit these stereotypes or that they're uncomfortable in the body that they have. So what's wrong with that is that you're recommending some invasive, risky, experimental, and costly medical treatments for something that you're saying is not a medical condition.
And so it's the medical model jumping in on what you could call a cultural zeitgeist of people pushing back against gender norms. And put the two together, and we've got an awful lot of children who want to medically transition. It's not right to medicalize perfectly healthy bodies and make them sicker.
Professionals are not able to hold space for this being an exploratory thing that teenagers do, and professionals are actually kind of rubber stamping the identity and encouraging kids to medically transition. This is really the potential of a serious epidemic of medical interventions that are probably going to be inappropriate for many of these kids.
If it, on some level, it appeased people and it made them feel so much better, I'd be very open to it. But I've met way too many people, way too many detransitioners who said, I was constantly trying to fight against the onslaught of nature. I was always fighting against it with the hormones I was taking. As somebody said, it's like putting diesel in the petrol tank.
So it's often said that puberty blockers are reversible, but this, I think, is disingenuous on multiple levels. So the first is that the majority of children who are started on puberty blockers, over 95%, go on to take cross-sex hormones. Because they are the first step in sequential treatment pathway, puberty blockers cannot be considered a standalone intervention. So the way the Endocrine Society breaks this down, they state very clearly that estrogen for males carries a very high risk of blood clots and then a moderate risk of breast cancer, heart disease, stroke, gallstones, and elevated triglycerides, which are a type of cholesterol. And then right from the same document, they list the risks of testosterone for females, very high risk of thickening of the blood, and then a moderate risk of severe liver dysfunction, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, and breast or uterine cancer. In the coming years is the psychological impact of being told by people in positions of authority, physicians in particular, that these interventions would improve that person's mental health, and then coming to discover that not only did the intervention not improve that person's mental health, but there actually was no evidence to begin with that it ever would.
Trans people, some of them, once they became trans-identified, they really felt like, I can't be comfortable in my body, I can't have a relationship, say, I can't let anyone touch me until I've transitioned. So they became very kind of fixated on medical transition as the thing that would make them feel comfortable in their body. But in fact, that didn't happen. And so it's almost like the gender dysphoria moves around. At first, it's like focused on the voice, and then they take testosterone and the voice deepens, but then it's like, well, then they have chest dysphoria and they want to get rid of their breasts, and then they have a mastectomy and it still doesn't work.
That is the road of transition. It's this always looking for the next solution, the next solution. A study in the Tavistock, which is the largest gender clinic for children in the world, and they showed 48% of those children presenting, seeking to medicalise their identity, were autistic. And I remember talking to one teenager, and we were discussing how testosterone is very hard on the female body. And she said, yeah, I'm very well aware of that, and it's really bad on the female body, but it's okay for me because, you see, I'm really male. And she didn't realise, no, we have physical limitations with our body, and you have been frankly lied to believe that what's in your mind is actually impacting the chromosomes in your body and the cells in your body. They're not.
What I don't realize now is that if they get those puberty blockers and they're pushing for it to be younger and younger, because the younger the child is that's put on puberty blockers first, then they go to wrong sex hormones, their secondary sex characteristics can be a little bit more tricky. And the medical industry loves that because they got to keep that going. Because again, as Jennifer Billick talks about all these markets opening up, we got to keep those drugs coming for a lifetime in order to keep that body, because it will fight forever. The natural DNA in our bodies will fight forever against those poisons that are literally being put in that body.
It's also part of the profiteering package because you're sterilizing a whole segment of the next generation who will, if they decide that they want to have children later, will need the techno-medical complex on the reproductive technology side. From like 2014 until now, it's everywhere. It's in our governments, not just one government, but all Western societies. They're changing their laws, they're changing their language, they're changing their institutions. If you go fill out a form at your doctor's office, suddenly there's more than male or female. People are being compelled to take this on, to invest in this as something that's real, even though it's in the mind. And the past 2 years has really accentuated that process by everybody being on technology and isolated in their own little bubbles. I mean, for people to think that this is just an organic development is startling to me. It's absolutely startling that people haven't even grasped this much, that this is really off.